Welcome to Buckle Up Podcast Universe with Brandon Rush.
Recording. And welcome back to the Buckle Up Podcast Universe with Brandon Rush and Mama Rush. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm actor Brandon Rush. I've been in 80 television shows and movies, and I launched the Buckle Up Podcast Universe with my mom, Mama Rush, who is a pharmaceuticals sales specialist. We have done 150 episodes as of today. We are in 82 countries and we are in 957 cities around the world and on 6 continents. What makes the show special is that we have guests from all around the world. We have doctors, lawyers. In my acting business, we have producers, directors, actors, actresses, voiceover artists, casting directors, casting associates, casting producers, and casting assistants. We have CEOs of companies. We have small business owners. We have professors, teachers, veterans, military. What makes the show special is the fact that we hope to be educational towards our audience and to the youth by bringing people from all different walks of life that have worked in these different areas, so they can share their knowledge and information with our audience and hopefully help the next generation. So today we have a very special guest on here that is Dr. Cary L. Gentry, a board-certified colon and rectal surgeon with decades of experience in the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of colorectal disease. Dr. Gentry specializes in colon and rectal cancer, minimally invasive colon surgery, and patient education around screening and early detection. Since March is a Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, we are grateful to have him with us to help our listeners understand what they need to know, what questions to ask, and how to take action for themselves and their families. And in just a few moments, we will have Dr. Gentry on here. And I also just want to say from a personal standpoint, anyone that is battling or suffering with cancer, I lost my father to pancreatic cancer, and that is something that sticks with me every day. So that is anyone that is battling that or that ailment, my heart goes out to you and sort of my prayers. And that's why we will hopefully be having more doctors on here and even companies that work with that kind of things. It can help spread awareness and information they might have with the doctors and nurses too that we have on the show. I want to say that, nurse practitioners. So we'll be back in just a few moments. Let's see here. Dr. Gentry, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Brandon.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. I hope you are.
Yes, sir. We're doing really well also. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy Saturday to come on to the Buckle Up Podcast Universe with Brandon Rush and
Mama Rush. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, Mama Rush. Glad to be with you as well.
Oh, great.
Absolutely. Well, sir, today it's all about you. We know the importance of Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and we're happy for you to come on and speak about that today. Dr. Gentry, how did you what inspired you to pursue medicine?
Well, first off, it's an honor to be on the Buckle Up Podcast University. Appreciate that. The journey to get to where we are today with colorectal cancer, at least in my life, it started with, I'm from Roanoke, Virginia, just, out in the foothills of Appalachia. And, for me, it was all about, trying to do better for your neighbors, your community. And I think what happened for me was, when I was younger, I was injured in a football accident and I broke my arm, had a compound fracture, and I was taken to the hospital and I was about 10 years of age. And I couldn't believe that, I go in sick, I've been in a lot of pain, I'm traumatized, and I come out well, and I thought, this is really amazing. I wonder if I'm not going to be a pro basketball player. I think I may have to try something else. And so, for me, my parents are both teachers. So the scientific inquiry, the investigation kind of sort of led me down the pathway to being inquisitive about science and about medicine. And once I got to college, I figured that, the basketball dream. I did play basketball in college, and I'm from
Mhm.
Roanoke, and so shout out to Cave Spring, where JJ Redick played,
Oh, wow.
the head coach for the Lakers, as we know.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
But I figured that was not going to work. So for me, once college hit and finished college, I was fortunate enough to go to med school, and I realized that I wanted to be doing something that could maybe change people's lives, and so that led me to surgery, and then a colorectal fellowship, which allowed me to really focus and hone in on just colorectal problems, not just cancer, but just any disease of the colon, rectum, and anus. And so I think after college, it's about 10, 11 years, you can start to practice, and that's what I did.
Oh, wow. And during your time doing that, sir, even with that fellowship, would you tell me a little bit about how, when you're studying, you decided, hey, this fellowship, I'm going to give that a shot? Is it just something that piqued your interest? Is it, do
Yeah,
you,
I mean, I know this is a PG
oh, no, you're good. You can speak as
podcast.
freely as you want to, sir.
Well, surgery residency, depending on where you do it, it's hard. I mean, if you watch The Pit, if you
Yes.
watch some of these programs, I know you're an actor, and so you're sensitive to like how the production occurs, but some of these are very realistic, and particularly some of the more modern medical shows. And so surgical residency is tough. And it's 100, when I was training, is 100 hours a week. You're not going to go home much. It's hard to have a family. And one night I was sitting in the CT scanner with one of my residents with me, after this drunk guy went through the windshield in the CT scanner. He was sitting in the CT scanner, and we're sitting there. He's drunk, and he's intubated. And I'm like, I don't think I want to do this when I get older. I don't want to be sitting in the CAT scanner at 2 a.m. with a drunk guy.
Yes,
And the
sir.
guy looked over at me and he said, maybe you should go into colorectal. And I go, why did you say that? He said, because very few people go ass first through the windshield. I go, that's it.
This is
So, all kidding aside, I liked surgery. It was fun, tough. It was worth the effort. I had
Mhm.
great teachers. I'm very humbled and very fortunate to have great surgeons who I learned under. And then the fellowship really just allows those of us who go into surgery to really hone in your skills. I mean, most surgeons nowadays are going to specialize. I mean, you have very few people going into just general surgery. They'll go into plastics, they'll go into colorectal, they'll go into trauma, they'll go into vascular. So for me, colorectal was interesting because I liked the idea of taking care of the GI tract, and it just fit.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Thank you very much for
Oh,
that.
that is so interesting, doctor. But what do you wish most people understood about colon health?
Well, thank you, Mama Rush. I think what I would say is that, for a long time, people did not want to talk about colon problems, the bowel. No one wants to talk about your bowels.
Mhm.
And, it wasn't until the last, I'd say maybe 20 to 30 years where, colonoscopy became a part of the routine screening health for people in this country. And when famous people like Chadwick Boseman, the Black
Mhm.
Panther, when Catherine O'Hara, who just passed away, she was on Schitt's Creek. Uh, Vanderbeek, just passed away from colon rectal cancer. When famous people are open about their disease, at least for colon cancer,
Mhm.
it really brings people's attention to themselves, because they don't think of themselves as being immune. But when a famous person gets it, then they say, well, if they can get it, then I can get it.
Of
And
course.
so that narrative does encourage, I think has encouraged a lot of folks to get checked sooner than they would have maybe in the normal routine. The second thing that's important is that in most, you know, insurance plans and health plans, there is an incentive for people to do things like this, to stay healthy, stop smoking, reduce your alcohol consumption, those type of things. And there's a benefit not only to the company, but also to the patient by doing that. And primary care physicians, if you talk about the burden of initiating screening, the primary care physicians have been the highlight here, because they've been asked to make sure that when they check their list of all the things that the patients need to do,
Mm-hmm.
prostate check, mammograms, colonoscopy, or at least colon screening for colon cancer
Mm-hmm.
is now ubiquitous in the primary care guidelines for credentialing and for quality metrics. So although the specialists, we, the GI doctors, and I'm a little different because I'm a surgeon, but the gastroenterologists who are very involved in this obviously as well, we've been the benefactors of this heightened awareness. And we don't take it lightly, and I think it's good, but there's some things we can talk about that have happened that are concerning as regarding colon cancer. So.
Please do. Sorry, continue, Dr. Gentry. You can.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. I think that some recent data just came out about people under 50. For a long time, the screening recommendation was the U.S. task force said start colonoscopies at 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they moved the goalpost to 45 in the last few years because they were seeing, some indication there were younger patients developing colon cancer. So we thought, well, okay, so we'll lower the number and we'll do better. And if you look at the total cohort over the last 30 years, for all comers, we've actually been doing pretty well with colon cancer, earlier diagnosis, and a trend down of mortality. However, this is the point. In the last year or so, there has been some data that's come out that has stated that for people under 50, there's been about a 3% increase in colon cancer
Oh, wow.
in that group under 50. And so, that was very concerning. We thought we were doing pretty well. Overall, we are, but the question is, why are we having younger people diagnosed with colon cancer? I mean, we moved the goalpost to 45,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not talking about just 45-year-olds. We're talking about 39-year-olds and 33-year-olds. And so
Yes.
that age group between, let's say, 30 and 45, that's not going to be fixed or corrected by doing screening at 45, right?
That's right.
So that's a big concern on our side is what are we doing? What can we do to reduce colon cancer in younger people? And that's our biggest, I think that's one of our bigger challenges going forward in the next 10, 20 years.
Absolutely.
Well, what do you think is causing it for you all to see younger patients actually getting colon cancer, having polyps and larger ones, and how do you what do you think the cause of that? Excuse me, doctor, something got in my throat. But anyway, what are your thoughts relative to that? The younger age group getting
So I
cancer.
think frame the conversation around detection versus prevention. I think the first thought is that we've established that we need to do a good job in getting people to screening testing, whether it's the box test. We're not going to name any names here, but the box test or the digital rectal exam with fecal occult blood testing or colonoscopy, which is the gold standard. We need to be doing something. We've established that. The question is, why are the younger people getting cancer? And I think one of the things that we've noticed is that the more likely scenario is that people are just ignoring their symptoms, in that they're having rectal bleeding. I mean, the most common thing we see, the top ones, let's say, the top four, let's say, are rectal bleeding, change in bowel habits, abdominal pain, iron deficiency, anemia, those kind of things. So when you start to have symptoms in a young person, common things happen commonly. In young people, if you have rectal bleeding, it's probably more likely to be a hemorrhoid. It's likely to be a fissure, benign conditions. But what happens is, and what we're seeing happen is that people are ignoring it for longer. And I think the later the diagnosis, or at least the evaluation, the greater likelihood that you're going to miss something. So that's one thing. The other component is there something in our diets or our water sources that is making us more susceptible to, let's say, an earlier progression to colorectal cancer? And nothing's been done. We haven't seen any data yet that's that said, aha, this is the issue. So I think it's multifactorial, Rush. I think it's multiple things. Delay in diagnosis. Our diets aren't the greatest. Maybe there's a problem with the water sources. Is there some sort of accelerant that's, making this transformation from normal tissue to polyps happen? And we can talk about that process of polyps to cancer as well.
Dr. Gentry, you're doing a phenomenal job. Let's go ahead and what you just said. Let's do that. Let's
Yeah.
go to what you just said about policy.
How do we get there? And I don't know if you can share the screen at all, Brandon, but if you can, great. If not, I can talk about it.
I can't. If you have excuse me, I'm able to see you, but I'm not able to see if you have it on a screen or something.
Yeah, I don't have. I mean, I have some stuff on my computer, but you can't give me the computer. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Understandable. Yeah, you can talk about it. It's fine.
Sure, I'll talk about it. So, the thing that we talked about earlier about the framing of the conversation is detection versus prevention. A lot of these tests will help detect abnormal findings, whether it's blood in the stool, maybe it's DNA that's shed from a cancer. So when you compare, let's say, colonoscopies and the box test for detection, they're pretty similar. And there are some patients who will not do a colonoscopy. There's I don't want to go do it. I don't want to do the bowel prep. I mean, if you look over my left shoulder, I have a bowel prep right here. I used to talk to my patients about this. I won't share the names away, but nobody wants to do the prep. And that's one concern. Some people just don't want to be put to sleep. And some people are fearful of just finding something new. The more you mess with me, the greater chance you're going to find something. And so once you walk them off the ledge of that conversation, you can say, well, how about we do this? How about let's do the box test and let's just see what it shows. Because if it's negative, the box test, it's a pretty good indication that you probably don't have colon cancer. Again, it's not as good as a colonoscopy, but it's close, very close. And that's on the detection side. On the prevention side, this is where, colonoscopy really runs down the road with the most appropriate and effective way. Because when you have a colonoscopy, most of the time we're going to see a polyp. And polyps are, let's talk about what polyps are. Polyps are normal tissue that grows, and the body does not necessarily destroy the cells or take care of the polyp and cause something called apoptosis, which is when the cells die because of the body attacking them, let's say. So when polyps form, the body doesn't recognize them as foreign, and so they grow. And polyps, it takes a polyp, we think anywhere from 8 to maybe 10 or 12 years to go from a polyp to a cancer. It's very slow growing in general. So the reason why colonoscopy is so effective is because if you do a colonoscopy, you can find the polyp and you can remove it at the early stage. If you look at colon cancer, the average age is in the 60s. So if we're doing colonoscopies in 40s and 50s, we're going to catch that polyp most likely. We're going to get that before it becomes cancer. And that's really where the crux of this is that we can prevent cancer by doing the colonoscopy. It doesn't mean that the other tests aren't good. And a lot of times, if the test that they do is positive, it gets them to the dance. It's to hey, look, I need to be, okay, Mr. Jones, you've got a positive box test. All right. You need to have a colonoscopy, right? The other thing that has to be mentioned about polyps is that there are just some people who have genetic and or familial predispositions to polyps. And so you probably heard folks in maybe your life and our experience as patients, oh yeah, my grandfather had colon cancer. My grandmother had colon cancer, or my dad had colon cancer. And those things impact their risk. So if you've got a patient who has, a family history of colon cancer, maybe there is a genetic condition that makes them more predisposed to develop polyps. They can't fix the polyp abnormality quick enough. So they form them a lot. Those are the people that, your radar is going to go up on, and you're going to want to be doing those patients possibly either, earlier for colonoscopy or more frequently. You got to remember too, colon cancer is, in general, most of them are sporadic, meaning that most colon cancers do not have a family history or genetic predisposition. They just happen.
Yes, sir.
And we don't know why that is. And so it's really important for the patient in your audience, and your audience is, nationwide and
Global.
We close
They,
worldwide.
Yes, sir.
they need to make sure that if they have a family member that says, I've been bleeding for about 6 to 8 months,
Wow.
One, don't ignore that symptom, no matter what the age is.
That's right.
So,
Amen.
so that's it. That's so interesting what you're saying, because if the guidelines state at the age of 40, 45, and you have a patient that has a family history, and that patient might be 25, and how should that patient get over getting the insurance company to pay? Because they're going to say, well, our guidelines state this. What happens in a case like that, Doc?
Right. So specifically there, that's going to be where sitting down with the patient and doing a thorough history and physical is going to be so vital in justifying what needs to be done and what's the proper way to do that. I mean, you talk about family history. If your 80-year-old grandmother had colon cancer, that doesn't really, we don't think, really increase your risk for developing for colon cancer if you're in your 20s and 30s, even 40s. I think you can consider a 45-year-old who was a grandmother in their 80s with colon cancer 30 years ago doesn't have an increased risk. However, if the family member's first degree relative, there's more than two or more family members that with colorectal cancer, or they have other associated cancers like uterine cancers and some of those cancers. That's where the history comes into play. And there are some hereditary syndromes. One of them is called Lynch's syndrome, where there are, but not only colorectal cancers, but other non-GI related cancers. And those patients need genetic analysis. They need a workup and need to be educated by a genetic counselor. So let's get back to the 25-year-old. I mean, you've got to talk to that 25-year-old and say, well, who are we talking about? Is it your grandma, or was your dad 42? I mean, if you talk about first degree relatives, particularly the parents and siblings, you want to start at 10 years younger than the age of the diagnosis of that person. So if your dad was 42, you ought to start at 32. And you can tell that 25-year-old, listen, let's get if everything was equal and it was just that one person in your family, 42-year-old, you started 32, you could talk me into starting at 30. You can tell that 25-year-old, listen, if you want to get a box test or you want to pay for that to make sure you don't have, colorectal cancer, you can do that. I think that's appropriate. But there are cases where, we do start sooner, younger. And those cases are usually those patients who have, again, multiple family members, colorectal cancer, who are younger when the diagnosis of that occurred. Patients with inflammatory bowel disease, so folks with Crohn's disease or colitis. And then there's a syndrome called familial adenomatous polyposis. It's a long word, but it occurs in about 1% to 2% of colorectal cancers. Those people need to start screening at around 20. So if you have that genetic predisposition based on your family history and based on testing, we'll start as early as 20.
Okay. Dr. Gentry, I thank you for explaining that. I went to my primary care physician. I remember asking him, "Hey, is it possible I can get a because what happened with Chadwick Boseman, with him having colon rectal cancer."
Yeah.
And then James Vanderbeek, who I actually worked with before, it's crazy that happened to him. I went ahead and said to my doctor, I was like, "Hey, is it possible I can get screened early?" He's like, "Well, Brandon, we don't start screening until 45." And I find that's interesting. If these men died well before 45, I believe Chadwick Boseman was early 40, maybe 41, 42, or 39, probably when he got diagnosed. How do you go about them moving that needle forward from 45? Like, who would be the person, I guess, what board of doctors would have to talk and say, "Hey, we're seeing this more and more. We need to move this needle maybe to 35 even, let's just say."
So I think the response is that the Achilles for screening in a young person is the asymptomatic patient. So, if you're asymptomatic in your 30s and you don't have family history, but you have a polyp that's growing that you don't even know about, because polyps don't necessarily give you symptoms until they're much larger and they start to slough, their lining, where you may see a little bit of blood in the stool or maybe a little mucus or change in the bowels. that's the Achilles, is the young person who has no symptoms. So, in that case, you have to be your best advocate, and you can certainly request a box test. You can do a digital rectal exam and check for blood in the stool. Those are two things that are pretty low hanging fruit. To get a colonoscopy, it's going to be an uphill battle because the insurance companies are probably not going to pay for that without it a good indication.
Yes, sir.
And you can always pay for it yourself. I mean, listen, there's no question that people do that a lot because they're concerned and they feel better. They can go forward when they know that, well, I'm fine, I'm normal. So it's tough. It's a tough hill to climb if you don't have family history or symptoms.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I can tell you one thing, doctor. When I used to sell medicines, and I went did a preceptorship with a GI doctor, and I saw that process, the colonoscopy being done. And I said, Doc, I was in the room with him. I said, listen, I don't like that procedure at all. It's very invasive and I don't want that. And I was looking at him. He said, well, Carolyn, it's not bad. You won't feel it or anything like that. I said, well, I'm going to pray to the Lord that they bring something else. And they brought the box test. I'm not going to call the name. They brought that test up. I said, oh, that is the right answer for me. So in the beginning, I think this was about 10 or 12 years ago, they would not, the insurance company would not approve that. And I said, well, I'm going to be an advocate for myself. I fought the insurance company. I took it all the way up to the top. And I believe I was in the first to receive that test. And I said, this is for me. And it worked so well. And then my sister, being a family practice physician, I said, Evelyn, you should start using this box test for your patients. And that's now, I think it's the gold standard. I think they start now screening using the box test first. That's how we put it. But then I was looking at the camera. They had a camera pill you could swallow. And I said, well, I told my doctor, I said, the doctor I was working with at the time, I said, oh, why don't I get that pill and swallow that pill? He said, Carolyn, come here. I'll show you how that works. And so with that, I'm so glad that they have these new things out there that you all can use. But with that said, I want to mention something. We had a GI nurse on the other day, and she said that they found a polyp the size of a 25-cent piece or quarter in a child at the age of 7. And I asked, why in the world would you have screened a child at 7? So, doctor, have you come across a unique case where you insisted, wait a minute, something is wrong? Can you share something unique like that with us?
Sure. And I will do that if I can just comment on a couple of things that you just mentioned
Absolutely.
about it. And I think it's really important to highlight that with the box test, that the detection for colorectal cancer is pretty close to colonoscopy. But when it comes to just polyps, and I think this is where kind of the rub is, and we're surgeons, so we're a little sensitive because we see, the cases that are maybe read as a false negative, and the patient comes in with a cancer, 5 years later, 4 years later. We do the surgery on these patients. So we tend to be certainly pro prevention first. So take that back. A box test that's positive, needs a colonoscopy. But a box test that is negative does not mean you're in the clear for a polyp, because those box tests are only, and again, I'm gonna disclaimer here, say that the detection of polyps is in the 40 to 50% range. So you can have a polyp and have a negative test.
Okay.
So let's remember that. And so the U.S. Task Force says you should have a colonoscopy every 10 years, a box test every 3 years, and a fecal occult test every year. I think your first test, of course, I'm biased, I'm going to say it, should be a visualization test. You need a good visualization test on the front end of this whole thing. If you do one every 10 years and you get to your mid-70s, you could talk me into doing the box test in your 80s. But remember, people are living longer. And this idea that, well, when you get to 80, just, you don't have to do anything anymore. You're good. You're good. And I think that doesn't really capture the way in which, our society in the United States lives. We just, people who live to 83 or have a great chance to live in the 90. So I'd rather see an 82-year-old with a box test at a minimum and or colonoscopy and remove a polyp than, wait till they get a cancer at 89 or 90,
Okay.
So I just wanted to make it a sort of a
I
sideline
understand.
on that.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay, that's good.
As far as unique cases, I mean, I don't do pediatric colorectal surgery. I have some colleagues that do it well, and I think that case that you highlighted points to some of the predisposition, some sort of genetic condition that existed there, possibly. My patients are usually 18 and older, but one of my first rectal cancer cases, and rectal cancer a little bit different, in that, remember, the colon is the large intestine, and so that also large intestine also is the rectum and the anus. So that last 12 to 15 centimeters of large intestine is the rectum. I had a patient who was having rectal bleeding at 21. Again, common things happen commonly. And she bled, and I examined her. I thought she had a fissure. I looked at her, and, nothing significant. So I gave her some treatment for the anal fissure. And I said, but you know what? If you're not better, come back in 6 weeks and we'll talk. Came back in 6 weeks, still bleeding. I said, well, guess what? You get a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
And at 21, she had a rectal cancer.
Holy smokes.
And it was probably, I mean, you couldn't have felt it. It was probably 8 to 10 centimeters up, but she was 21 years of age, and I had to tell her and her parents, look, you have rectal cancer. And we caught it early, and we treated her. She had surgery, and 10 years later, she invited me to the delivery room for the delivery of her first child.
Amen. Amen.
Oh, that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
it means a lot, when you make that kind of an impact, but also we have to really think about, outside the box, if you want to call it.
Yes, sir. Dr. Gentry, I just want to say, first off, that was an amazing story, and thank you for sharing that with us. I think and I wonder how, even in your own mind, when you think about the fact that that person decided to get drunk that one day and fly through the window of his car would semi-shape the track of your life. You were already going to be a doctor, but how that one instance kind of shaped your life to where you went into being a colon rectal surgeon. I believe I said that correctly. And you ended up saving this girl's life who then had you be there whenever her baby was born. I mean, that's quite the incredible story in itself.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. We're very humbled. I mean, the sexy term for colorectal surgery is surgeon is proctologist.
Okay.
So take that. We love that.
Thank you. Yeah.
We love that.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I mean, I'm in the caring business. And, we don't get here alone. I have 5 other great partners, or 6 of us here in Richmond, Virginia. And, we really lean on each other as a practice, because just like in sports, you cannot get anywhere without a team of people. And so, every time patients walk in the door, we have the opportunity to set the foundation of how this is going to go. And we're in private practice, Brandon. We're not owned by private equity or by a hospital system. So, we have a lot of autonomy. And in our practice, the beauty of it is that we can take a patient and make them feel like they're the most unique, interesting, only issue that we have to deal with. And it takes my whole team to do it, my nurses, my secretary, because when you walk in the door, the first face you see, that's going to be your image of the practice.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And so our ethos is, patient comes first, then the group, and you put yourself last. If you ever put yourself above the group individually, or you put a group decision above the patient, it always ends badly. It always ends badly. So that's how we work. That's how we think. And that, going back to that moment when I said I was not going to do trauma surgery, I was going to go into colorectal, you just hope that the experiences that you have will lead to these kind of positive outcomes.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just humbled by the training I've had and the people I've worked with. I mean, our practice in Richmond started as a proctology practice in 1913.
Holy smokes.
So it has a very long history. And when I joined 25 years ago, my partners were just icons of the community. I mean, just stalwarts. And, I just learned from them and took advice from them. I made mistakes with them and I learned from those mistakes. And what we're trying to do is to continue that sort of mentality. And the ultimate goal is that the patients benefit.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And that's how we kind of think.
And I love, sorry, Mom, go ahead.
No, I just said I love hearing that because I was going to ask you about your practice a little bit and what separates a good surgeon from a great one. And if you could just talk about that a little bit, because I can imagine that there are a lot of surgeons out there, but what separates you from the rest?
Right. Well, I think if you can look at a patient and say, I don't know the answer to that question,
Mm-hmm.
and say it knowing that the next comment after that is, but I'm going to find out for you. I want to figure that out. That is the hallmark, I think, of a person who, realizes that medicine is an art and a science.
Mm-hmm.
And even though every single case you think is going to go one way, it's here's another sports analogy. Sometimes you have to call an audible at the line of scrimmage. You think that this is going to go this way, but you get in there and guess what? There's a whole nother problem that you didn't expect. Well, you have to pivot. And a good surgeon, sometimes it takes experience just to know that. There are very good skilled surgeons all over this great country of ours. But sometimes, you just have to make the call at the time. And so a good surgeon is someone who's able to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
When I trained, I didn't train with the robot. We're a lot of people are doing the robot now for robotic surgery, for colon surgery.
Oh,
And
wow.
I didn't train with that. So I got to a point in my career where I said, gosh, all my partners are doing this robot thing. They're really good at it. And all the patients are going to them. It must be good. And so I had to think, well, you know what, if you're going to continue to be in practice, you need to learn how to do it. And that learning curve is sometimes pretty steep. So, after 100, 150 cases, you go, okay, I think I can do this. So that's the piece of it, is you have to have an adaptable surgeon who's willing to make calls that, that are maybe challenging. And ultimately, let the patient know that no matter what happens, we're not going to leave you at the altar. We are going to be there with you through the whole thing. And I think that's the biggest piece of it, is trust. It's a very, very
That's true.
difficult to develop a trust. Very easy to lose it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Very difficult to develop it. And if you, work from the ethos that we have,
Mm-hmm.
you can develop a trustful relationship between the patient. The patient will understand, hey, look, I know this is not going to be an easy case. There may not be the things that you expect, but I trust you to do what's the right thing for me. And if you can reach that point in a practice, you're going to do pretty well most of the time. Not perfect, but you're going to do well pretty much of the time. So that's kind of how we work. And it's they always say if you love your job, you don't work a day in your life. I got to tell you,
I believe
that's how I
that to
feel.
be the truth. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Gentry, what kind of daily habits to protect colon health? What would you say that people can do, or important diet, or so healthy things that they can do on a daily basis people can do, or how important diet is as well, if you can maybe mention those two things.
Yeah, that's good question, Brandon. Excuse me. The gut is probably the center of your immune system. I mean, we have all kinds of literature out there about a healthy gut, and I would encourage patients to spend the time doing some research on healthy eating. I mean, we tell people all the time, don't eat, processed foods, cut out your fried foods, get fresh fruits and vegetables, get plenty of fiber, 25, 30 grams a day, plenty of water. And I mean, I think that's a hallmark is clean eating. Most patients in this country have some degree of diverticulosis. You probably heard of diverticulosis. And I know this is more about the Colorectal Cancer Month, but also colon health in general is dictated by your bowel consistency, about your bowel habits. And people who stay regular, get enough fiber, they tend to have less other complaints that are like diverticulitis or diverticulosis or irritable bowel,
Yes, sir.
problems. So I think we could always recommend healthy eating. Whether people, drink the water when you take them there, it depends. But we always promote that. As surgeons, we have to be very mindful of that because if we're going to operate on you, you have to eat healthy.
Yes, sir. Now, if you wouldn't mind explaining dieticularic, I can't even pronounce it. If you wouldn't mind explaining that,
Diverticulitis.
yes, sir. Thank you. Some words get me. If you
Yeah.
wouldn't mind actually explaining that to me and our
Yeah.
audience, would be great because not everybody knows that, including
Yeah.
myself. I don't.
Yeah. Diverticulitis is the inflammatory condition that exists in the presence of diverticulosis. So there's osis and there's itis, right? So osis is just the presence of the diverticula, okay? And about 30 to 40% of patients in this country have it
Yes,
for the
sir.
reasons we mentioned before.
Yes, sir.
Bad diet, constipation, maybe they were raised in a meat and potato family, didn't drink enough fiber, eat enough in college. I don't know.
Yes,
But
sir.
the point is, it's pretty common. And so when people get these attacks, these diverticular attacks, usually it's the hallmark is abdominal pain, occasionally a fever, not always,
Yes, sir.
but obstipation, can't evacuate the stool, backed up, nausea, vomiting occasionally. And so the only way to rectify that is to go on a low residue diet. Some people recommend antibiotics. I mean, if you look at diverticulitis is an inflammatory condition.
Okay.
The diverticula are actually pseudo-diverticulum. That means they don't include the entire wall of the colon. It's just 2 of the 3 layers. And so it's a weak spot. So if you talk about why do people get these attacks? Well, it's because pressure builds up in the colon and those areas become either inflamed, microperforate. I mean, it could be that serious, bleed,
Yes, sir.
and that causes the pain. So some people say, well, put them on antibiotics. And if you look at the literature on antibiotics for diverticulitis, it only reduces the attack by about a day.
Ooh.
So you can, and some people, they swear by it. It's like, Dr. Gentry, you've got to give me Cipro and Flagyl. You got to give me these antibiotics. And, fine. You give it to them, it gets better quicker, let's say.
Yes, sir.
So diverticulitis is a case where you get infection, you get inflammation. The worst case scenario is when you perforate and you have stool in your belly and you got to go to the operating room emergently. That does happen in rare cases. Most of the patients nowadays who have diverticulitis can be treated conservatively. And the rub is, when does that patient require surgery? And I tell patients, look, you got to talk about the risk of doing nothing over here, like your first attack, versus
Yes,
the
sir.
risk of doing something, which is way up here, like surgery's up high the first time. But if you have 5 or 6 attacks every year, the risk of doing nothing gets higher than the actual surgery.
Yes, sir.
So, that's where we fall in diverticulitis, but you hopefully can avoid it by eating well.
Okay. And then Dr. Gentry, I have one more thing to say. I'm able to really read people a lot of times. I'm an empath, always have been able to tell about someone's character, their spirit. You have a good spirit and a good personality about you, sir. By that, I can tell that you truly are passionate and you truly care, which is something that I think is important, especially in that field. What kind of advice, but I want to say that because sometimes it could be like a doctor is like a robot. Hey, this is just X patient number 1, but I don't get that from you. I don't see that coming out of you at all. What kind of words of advice could you have for someone that is either A, afraid to go get checked, or B, actually, that could be one thing, or B, someone preparing to go into that surgery?
Yeah. So one's on the patient side,
Yes,
and
sir.
one's on the doctor side going into the field.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. I mean, so well, I appreciate the comments and I put my pants on one leg at a time. I think for patients, what our goal here, and this is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, it's March Madness, is to know that, it's better to find out early. It's better to find out before there's a problem. And there are a lot of ways to get that done. And if you don't want to do a colonoscopy at 45, you can have a box test. You can have an exam by your doctor. That's fairly innocuous, and you can get checked. And that's the key thing is that if you don't get checked you'll never know. And I would rather you take the smaller steps to get that checked, right?
Yes, sir.
On the, on the medical side, like I have a daughter, I have 4 kids. One of my daughters
wow.
is, her name is Lily. Lily is a junior in college. She wants to go to med school.
Okay.
She's the only kid that wanted to go to med school or go to school in medicine at all. Yes, I couldn't talk any of them into it. And I think what I have told her, is that your heart has to be in the right place, just like in anything you do. You know this. I mean, if you're dedicated to your craft, you're going to focus on that. And on the medical side, you have to have empathy. You have to have it. And if you do, you can do anything. There's so many fields. So I would encourage people who like to, it doesn't even have to be medicine. I mean, doctor, you could be my wife's a nurse practitioner. Oh,
wow.
So there's a lot of fields, but I think empathy is the key, really.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then if I can ask one more question, you mentioned your family. How do you balance that? If you want to talk about your kids, you can definitely give them a shout out.
Yeah.
And then even how that might have impacted you personally with you. Let's say the fact that you have 4 children, and sometimes you come across these people that are going through these ailments. I mean, I feel like that has to pay. Maybe that has to. I feel like it does play a factor. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, when the kids are younger, I would take them on rounds on the weekend. I'd take them to the
hospital.
Really? Yeah. We go in the hospital, and I had these two little girls with me making rounds, and everybody thought that was great. I actually took them into the patient room. Of course, it was just like a hello and greet, but I think they got a chance to be exposed to what it takes, because the greatest thing you can do is take care of another human being.
Amen.
So to me, when they were able to do that, you hope that they catch up a little bit by osmosis, right?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of ways to do things, but taking care of other people is a real privilege, and it's an honor. And I think they enjoyed that. Again, like I said, I only got one to be interested in medicine. But I've got 2 sons. One of them is getting his PhD. He's getting his PhD in horticulture. He has scientific inquiry in his head. He's doing that. Being a doctor, being a surgeon has its drawbacks, and you are away from home a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And that's the hard truth is that you may be away from your kids and your wife more than you want to, because you're going to put that focus on the patient.
Yes, sir.
And the balance is hard. It's not an easy balance. Faith, family, and your work. You have to try to do the best you can. So in my case, my kids, I think they're all over 20. They're all trying to pay taxes and put food on the table. I think they have seen, that is maybe one of the biggest challenges, and maybe the reason why they didn't want to go into medicine, but
understandable.
But
I want to make sure you mention the other 2 so you don't get in trouble.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
There's 2 more I think you had to go with. You mentioned 2.
Yeah.
To get 2 more.
I got 2 boys, 2 girls.
Okay.
The boys are one's a engineer, computer engineer. One's a PhD student, and the girls are masters in your urban planning, and then Lil's trying to get her go to med school.
Great
Dang,
job.
you got a family that you got the
powerhouse family.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but the Caucasian Cosby Show family.
I mean, really, where's the Huxtables? I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's it, the Huxtables. Yeah, you guys really are that. Well, go ahead, Mom.
Brett, well, one thing I wanted to tell you, Doctor, it's just so great hearing the beautiful human side of you. And also, I can see, as Brandon said, I can hear the care that you have given your patients and the love you have for your job. And when someone loves it, like you say, you never really work a day in your life. But the bottom line, the impact you're making on humans, and I said mankind. And I think that's so important. I don't care what job you go into, but at the end of the day, if you put a person with what you do, and you think, even if you're picking up trash, I said, if you're picking up that trash well enough that person comes out, has a great day, might have to go in and their trash has been picked up, they in the right mood to go into the hospital and do surgery. Wow, everything works within society. And I appreciate what you have done for your patients. I like I said, I hear the care, the love you give them. And one thing with this Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, what advancement brings you hope right about now?
I think it's in genetics. I think it's in the identification of cancers earlier. I think we're going to get blood tests.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to be able to treat cancers with immunotherapy. We actually are starting to do that already. So I
Okay.
think that there's hope on the future horizon about,
Mm.
maybe I won't be doing surgery anymore.
Mm.
10 or 15 years. Maybe I'll just be doing the colonoscopies, finding the tumors. And then once we look at the tumor and take the microbiology and sort of sequence that tumor, we can just give them immunotherapy, and the body will go in and create its own defense mechanism and just melt the tumors away.
Oh.
So my hope is that the more technology, the more genetics, the more microbiology that we have development, we're going to do better with cancer over time.
Oh, that sounds promising. That really
Yeah.
does. Okay,
Yeah.
Brandon, are you ready to do this thing?
Yes, ma'am. It's just a quick lightning. You've been phenomenal today, Doctor. We're gonna do a quick
Yes.
lightning round. It's just quick questions. The
Sure.
answer it could be as short as you want to, as long as you want it
Okay,
to.
sure. Go ahead.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early morning or late nights?
Early morning.
Favorite way to unwind?
Bourbon by the pool.
That's a good one. Golf, tennis, pickleball, fishing, or another activity?
Yoga.
Really?
Like that.
Yeah, I like that too. One word patients use to describe you.
Oh. Thorough.
I like that.
Oh.
If not a surgeon, what would you be?
A lawyer for the NFL.
Ooh,
Oh, wow. That's great.
yeah. Favorite meal?
Orchetti.
What
Yeah,
is
what's that? Actually, I don't know what that is. You said
Like pasta,
oh, it's type of pasta.
sausage and orchetti.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
One life principle.
From my mom. It's not what you have, it's what you do when you get there.
Amen.
Mm.
And then if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self anything, what would you say? And that could be as long as you want to be.
Shoot more foul shots.
I like that. Well, Dr. Gentry, I just want to
Yeah.
say that you have been an absolute blessing today. And you are such a genuine person. I thank you for your time, and I hope you had fun doing it as well. Also, I want to say to make sure to send me a picture for your podcast station, like a picture, whatever picture you want to use,
Okay.
because you've been outstanding. And I know that if I want to say personally, as if I know that I ever had prostate cancer or something like that, I would want to go to your office after speaking with you here today because one, I trust you. Two, I know you care for your patients, and I think that you have that personal touch that I would feel in good hands going towards you. And I truly mean that by the bottom of my heart. So I wanted to say thank you, and then I'm gonna let my mom close it out.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Gentry, I wanted to ask you, and this is one last question. If you could leave listeners with one life-saving message, what would it be?
That you know your body better than anybody, so listen to it. And if it's telling you that something's not right, make a choice and get it checked out. And if this, at a minimum, make sure you get screened for colorectal cancer at 45 or sooner if you are at high risk.
Okay, great. Well, Dr. Gentry, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, especially on a Saturday and the end of colon rectal awareness week. A month, rather say, but really, we need to be aware all year long. This is just a special time to bring attention there. So I'm so glad that. And one thing I want to let you know, we reach over 980 cities across 6 continents with more than 19 million viewers. So I'm glad that then this is worldwide and we're on 6 continents. And so they got a chance to hear you, to see you. And this is so powerful for the Buckle Up podcast universe. So we really, truly appreciate your time, your expertise, your impact. And to our listeners, stay ready, stay aware, and always buckle up.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Gentry, thank you so much. You're natural, man, just so you know.
You're natural. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we
He's
give everyone a
made
round.
ready. He's made for TV, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he really is. He really is. Well, I want to give you a round of applause, Doctor.
All right.
You're phenomenal today. You have a blessed day. You enjoy that bourbon by the pool.
There you go. Thank you both very much. And best to the Buckle Up podcast universe.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Absolutely.
Take care.
He was phenomenal. You take care as well, sir.
Oh,
He was
he was
phenomenal, Mom.
excellent.